Chapter 1: The Enigmatic Stranger. In the quiet, picturesque village of Blackwood, life moved at a serene pace. Nestled in the shadow of the imposing Blackwood forest, the villagers led simple lives, untouched by the chaos of the outside world. The village was known for its lush greenery, ancient trees, and the crystal-clear river that ran through it. One crisp autumn evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned a deep shade of indigo, a stranger arrived in Blackwood. He rode a jet-black horse, his cloak billowing in the wind, his face obscured by the wide brim of his hat. The villagers watched with a mix of curiosity and apprehension as the stranger dismounted and made his way to the only inn in the village. The innkeeper, a burly man named Thomas, greeted the stranger with a nod. "Welcome to Blackwood, traveler. How may I assist you?" The stranger's voice was smooth, almost hypnotic. "A room for the night, and perhaps some food and drink." Thomas showed the stranger to a room on the top floor, farthest from the bustling common area. The stranger paid in gold, an unusual currency in the village, and requested privacy. Chapter 2: The Strange Happenings. As the days passed, the villagers couldn't help but notice strange occurrences. Livestock were found dead, drained of blood, and children began having nightmares about a shadowy figure lurking in the woods. The once peaceful village was now shrouded in an air of unease. Old Man Jenkins, the village's resident historian, whispered tales of an ancient curse linked to the forest. He spoke of a vampire, a creature of the night that fed on the blood of the living. Few believed his tales, dismissing them as the ramblings of an old man, but the fear in his eyes was undeniable. One night, a young woman named Eliza went missing. She was last seen near the edge of the forest, picking wildflowers. The entire village searched for her, but she was nowhere to be found. Her disappearance only heightened the villagers' fears. Chapter 3: The Truth Revealed. It was on a particularly stormy night that the truth began to unravel. The stranger, who had mostly kept to himself, emerged from the inn and headed towards the forest. Young William, a curious and adventurous boy, decided to follow him. Keeping a safe distance, he watched as the stranger entered an old, abandoned chapel hidden deep within the forest. William waited until the stranger was out of sight before sneaking into the chapel. Inside, he found a stone coffin, its lid slightly ajar. Trembling with fear, William peered inside and saw the stranger, but now he appeared different. His skin was pale, his eyes glowed with an eerie red light, and fangs protruded from his mouth. William ran back to the village, his heart pounding in his chest. He burst into the inn, breathless and frantic. "The stranger, he's a vampire. I saw him in the chapel." Chapter 4: The Confrontation. The villagers, armed with pitchforks and torches, followed William back to the chapel. As they approached, the air grew colder, and the wind howled through the trees. Inside, they found the stranger, his eyes burning with fury. "You should not have come here," he hissed, his voice echoing off the stone walls. Thomas, holding a crucifix, stepped forward. "We know what you are. Leave this place, or we will destroy you." The vampire laughed, a chilling sound that sent shivers down their spines. "You think you can destroy me? I am older than this village, older than the trees that surround it. I am eternal." A fierce battle ensued. The vampire moved with supernatural speed, evading their attacks and retaliating with deadly precision. But the villagers, fueled by fear and desperation, fought with all their might. Thomas managed to drive the vampire back into his coffin, and with the help of the others, they sealed it shut. Chapter 5: The Aftermath. The villagers left the chapel, their bodies battered and their spirits weary. They had faced the darkness and survived, but the scars of that night would remain with them forever. Old Man Jenkins, though frail, led the efforts to ensure the vampire would never rise again. He oversaw the placement of holy symbols around the chapel and performed ancient rituals to bind the vampire within its tomb. Years passed, and the village slowly returned to its peaceful ways. The story of the vampire became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the evil that lurked in the shadows. The chapel in the forest stood as a silent sentinel, guarding against the return of the creature of the night. Chapter 6: The Eternal Watch. Generations came and went, and the story of the vampire faded into legend. The villagers of Blackwood lived their lives, unaware of the dark history that lay buried beneath the forest floor. The chapel, now overgrown with vines and hidden by the encroaching trees, became a place of mystery and intrigue. One summer, a group of archaeologists arrived in Blackwood, intrigued by the local legends. They sought to uncover the truth behind the stories and explore the ancient chapel. Among them was Dr. Rebecca Harding, a historian with a keen interest in folklore. Chapter 7: The Awakening. Dr. Harding and her team made their way to the chapel, their equipment in tow. As they cleared away the vines and debris, they uncovered the entrance to the tomb. Intrigued, they decided to open it, despite the warnings of the villagers. The moment the coffin was unsealed, a chilling wind swept through the chapel, extinguishing their lanterns. The vampire, awakened from its slumber, emerged from the coffin. His eyes, now burning with an even more intense red light, scanned the room. Dr. Harding and her team stood frozen in fear as the vampire stepped forward. "You have made a grave mistake," he said, his voice a mere whisper, yet it echoed through the room. Chapter 8: The Night of Terror. The vampire moved with lightning speed, attacking the archaeologists one by one. Dr. Harding watched in horror as her colleagues were drained of their blood, their lifeless bodies falling to the ground. She tried to run, but the vampire was upon her in an instant. "You will serve as a reminder to those who would dare disturb my rest," the vampire said, his fangs sinking into her neck. Dr. Harding's scream echoed through the forest, but it was quickly silenced. The vampire, now stronger than ever, left the chapel and made his way towards the village. Chapter 9: The Return of the Vampire. The villagers of Blackwood were unprepared for the horror that descended upon them. The vampire moved through the village like a shadow, attacking anyone who crossed his path. Panic spread as the bodies of the victims were discovered, each one drained of blood and bearing the telltale bite marks. Thomas's grandson, David, was among the few who believed the old legends. He rallied the villagers, arming them with crosses, garlic, and holy water. They knew they had to act quickly if they were to stand any chance against the vampire. Chapter 10: The Final Battle. The villagers once again made their way to the chapel, their hearts heavy with fear and determination. They found the vampire waiting for them, his eyes glowing with malevolent glee. "You cannot defeat me," the vampire taunted. "I am eternal." David stepped forward, holding a cross aloft. "We may not be able to destroy you, but we can bind you once more." A fierce battle ensued, but this time, the villagers were prepared. They used their knowledge of the vampire's weaknesses to their advantage, driving him back into the coffin. With a final, desperate effort, David sealed the coffin shut and placed holy symbols around the tomb. Chapter 11: The Legacy. The villagers left the chapel, their bodies battered and their spirits weary. They had faced the darkness and survived, but the scars of that night would remain with them forever. David ensured that the story of the vampire was passed down through the generations. The chapel in the forest remained a place of mystery and dread, a reminder of the evil that lay within. Years turned into centuries, and the village of Blackwood thrived. The story of the vampire became a distant memory, a tale told to children on dark, stormy nights. But deep within the forest, the chapel stood as a silent sentinel, guarding against the return of the creature of the night. And sometimes, on quiet nights, when the moon was full and the wind whispered through the trees, the faint sound of a whisper could be heard, a chilling reminder of the vampire that once terrorized the village. The villagers knew to heed the warning and never to disturb the ancient tomb, for the vampire's curse was eternal, and his thirst for blood could never be quenched.
Don't forget to subscribe.